Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. This is the first episode of 2026, and the first episode after I have recovered from my second eye surgery. I had a cataract removed from this eye in September, and then I had another cataract removed from this eye in December. And now here I am, finally with two functioning eyes, really for the first time in my life. I was born with cataracts, so I've never been able to see clearly until now. So I can finally see the world. I can see how old everybody is, all the wrinkles and whiskers and spots, including my own. I can see all the dust everywhere. Everything looks dirty now. I just want to clean everything. It's like, ugh. I see all the cobwebs everywhere, hanging from the ceiling. Like, wow, the world is filthy. Yikes. Everyone's old and everything's dirty. That's the blessing of perfect eyesight. This eye was 2250 and now it's 2020. I haven't had this one tested because it's still healing. It takes a month to heal and really 2 months. So once it's healed, I'll have it tested and see what my final corrected eyesight is. Hopefully it'll be 20/20 in both eyes. We'll see. So that is the miracle of medicine, giving me normal human vision finally. Before I go any further, I want to make note of some sad news, even though by the time you see this, it will have been several weeks. It's the first time that I've had a chance to address it. A giant in our hobby, Bob Burns, passed away in December. He lived a long, full life, so I don't want to make it seem too sad because, he was blessed with a very fruitful life full of love and friendship and success. But it is sad that he has finally passed on. I did get to meet Bob several times. I was lucky enough to go to his home several times in Burbank and hang out with him, see his famous basement, Bob's basement, see all his wonderful collection. And he helped out with the UMA display and some UMA projects. UMA would be the Universal Monster Army. He was a fixture for several years at Wonderfest and several other conventions that I attended.
Oh, the memories just brings back to me. Whew. Because I got most of this stuff when it was new,
Yeah.
I was a young snapper then, and that's been a while back. This is, you guys, you're going to Monster Bash too, right, with it?
Yes, we are. Are you going to be there?
No. I can only do one show a year now. My health is nothing good. No, I'm old. That's just all. I'm just plain old. Oh God, I never saw this guy.
This generation of filmmakers who grew up with his legend, they loved coming to his house. If they made a movie, they would bring the props and the makeup effects and the puppets and things to Bob and say, here's something for your collection. So he accumulated this over time, and he just had a wonderful, wonderful collection. It was a joy to walk through his basement and see all this stuff. But he wasn't a good guy because of what he owned. He was a good guy because he was warm-hearted and friendly, and he shared not just his stuff, he shared himself, he shared his house, he shared his life with people. He was very generous and very giving. And I'm sad that he's gone, but I'm happy that he lived so long and had a full life, and he didn't pass away before his time. Bob was 90 years old when he passed away on December 12th. He was a gorilla suit actor who worked with Ray Dennis Steckler in several low-budget films in the 60s, and he lent his gorilla talents to many other projects. I hesitate to spend too much time talking about his gorilla suit years because he was so much more than that. But it has a special connection for me because I grew up in the 1970s watching the original Ghostbusters television show every Saturday morning. And Bob played Tracy the Gorilla on that show. It was a live action show. It predated the Ghostbusters movie by several years, and there was no connection between the two. It was a completely different thing. And in the credits, it said Tracy trained by Bob Burns. And as a kid, I believed that. I don't know if I thought Tracy was a real gorilla. I'm not sure what I thought, but I believed on some level that there was a guy named Bob Burns who actually trained this gorilla to be on the show. So at that age, you believe in amazing things, and you just think, oh, it's perfectly logical. Why not? So that show holds a special place in my heart. I remember every Saturday morning eating my chocolate peppermint Pop-Tarts and watching the Far Out Space Nuts and Ghostbusters, the live-action Ghostbusters TV show with Bob Burns as the trainer of Tracy the Gorilla. But Bob was best known as a film historian and collector of science fiction movie props and memorabilia. He was a good friend of 1950s monster maker Paul Blaisdell and assisted Paul on several films, including It Conquered the World and Invasion of the Saucermen. And Bob had several Paul Blaisdell creations in his collection. Bob lived in Burbank, and he displayed his collection in his basement. There was a book about it. It came from Bob's basement. Bob turned his basement into a museum filled with all these amazing original movie props, puppets, masks, prosthetics from science fiction, horror, fantasy films, from the golden age of cinema all the way to the 21st century. Even though his collection was structured like a museum and you could walk through it, it wasn't open to the public. It was invitation only. And I was lucky enough to be able to view this museum a few times in the 90s and early 2000s. Bob had everything from original Universal Monsters, Jack Pierce prosthetics. He had a Glenn Strange Frankenstein headpiece and some boots. He had an original Wolfman appliance, a Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman appliance, and a Chaney Jr. Karis appliance. And he had the original screen-used handle for the cane in the Wolfman. The cane that Larry Talbot carries and that his father later uses to kill him at the end of the movie, Bob had the real handle for that cane. And any replica of that cane that you've seen over the years is either molded from or based on Bob's original prop that he had in his collection. One of the centerpieces of Bob's basement was the original time machine from George Powell's The Time Machine. That was one of Bob's pride and joy pieces. Not the number one piece, we'll get to that, but it was one of the things I think that he was most proud of and that he really enjoyed showing off to visitors. I was fortunate enough to get to sit in that time machine during one of my visits. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it really feels like you're in the movie. I felt like I could pull some switches and end up in another century. Bob was good friends with Rick Baker, going way back to Baker's youth. So he had a lot of original Rick Baker pieces, including stuff that Rick Baker made when he was young and still practicing. Bob had several Star Wars Cantina creatures and an American werewolf in London, animatronic wolf, the screen-used wolf. Bob had a lot of xenomorphs in his collection, original screen-used aliens, including a screen-used queen alien. He didn't have the whole body, just the head. There wasn't room for the whole body. But he had a queen alien head in his basement and a bunch of other aliens from the entire franchise. But the centerpiece of his collection, his pride and joy, more than the time machine, more than any of the other stuff, was his original King Kong armature. This was the 1933 King Kong, animated by Willis O'Brien. He had the original metal skeleton. When he got it, it still had some rubber and fur on it, but it was rotting, so he had that removed because he said it was going to damage the armature if he left it on. So what he ended up with was this clean metal armature that was used in King Kong. So when you held that thing, you were holding King Kong, the original King Kong. I got to hold it a few times, and I even made out with it in a hotel room, but that's another story. Bob was married to a really sweet woman named Kathy Burns, who passed away a few years before he did. She was really nice. She was very friendly with all the fans and friends who came to visit Bob, and she made us feel at home. So I have good memories of, not very detailed memories, but good general memories of Kathy just being very hospitable and warm to these weird people coming into her house. Now, I wasn't bosom buddies with Bob, so I don't want to oversell our relationship like we were best of friends, but did we ever hang out? Yes. Did we call each other and have long phone conversations? Yes. So he wasn't just someone I met one time. I knew he was a friend. He was my friend. And I'm very happy to have known him. I don't have a lot of funny stories, but I could relate a couple of things. Once I called him, I don't remember what for, I think just to say hi, and it was when California was experiencing mudslides. Not something that we have in Missouri. I've never witnessed a mudslide, but apparently that's a big problem, is still a big problem, and the mud just, not only do they have earthquakes and wildfires, they have mudslides, and the mud slides down the hill to these communities, and it's like something in a movie where lava comes out of a volcano and and you see it pushing against the homes and the buildings. I'm imagining, because I haven't witnessed this, so I'm imagining something like that. Well, there was a mudslide, and it was attacking Bob's house. I didn't know that. I called him up. He says, "Hey, it's Raymond." He goes, "Oh, yeah," he was happy to hear from me. I was very touched about that. And we started talking, but he had a kind of a frantic sound in his voice. And I was like, what's going on? And so, "Oh, it was a mudslide. It's crashing into the side of my house, and there's mud coming in through the cracks in the windows and under the doors, and I'm just trying to sandbag and do this and do that, save the house." And I said, well, maybe I should call you another time. And he said, no, it's fine. And from seeing news reports later, I know this was a big deal. This was a disaster. And in the middle of this, he wanted to talk to me about monsters on the phone. He didn't want me to hang up. And so as we were talking, he would describe what he was doing. And I can't remember exactly the process, if he was stacking sandbags, I think, kind of like when there's a flood, something like that. But he was telling me about what he was doing, but then he really just wanted to talk about monsters. Maybe he wanted something to distract him from this dire situation. But I kept saying, "You sure you're okay talking like this?" No, keep going. This is good. This is great. And we talked for like an hour or so while his house was being destroyed by the mudslide. Well, it wasn't destroyed because he was very good about defending his home against the mud. Like something from a 50s science fiction movie attacking his house. That was a surreal conversation. And another story would be one time I visited him, and I knew ahead of time, because I used to go to Los Angeles every 6 months, roughly twice a year. I knew people there, and I would hang out there for a week or two, and it was just something I did regularly 20 plus years ago. Not so much these days. But back then I did, so I could get to know these people. And I called up Bob and I said, "I'm going to be in town next week if you want to connect. He's, oh, yeah, sure. I'm doing my Halloween display, because Bob would do these elaborate Halloween displays with actors and special effects and props. It was a whole experience. It was like a haunted attraction at his house. And it was for the neighborhood kids. He didn't charge admission or anything. And he didn't charge admission for that museum to go see his basement. That was just for friends. It was set up like a museum, but it was just for friends. He could have charged, but he didn't. And he didn't charge for this Halloween haunted attraction in his front yard, basically. But he said, come on over and you can help me plan my Halloween display. Okay. So I went over there the next week, went to his house, and then we had lunch at this restaurant in Burbank. I can't think of the name of it. Anytime he had a meeting somewhere, it was always at this restaurant in Burbank. And we were out in a patio, and around this table, there were all these luminaries, these genre luminaries. And Greg Nicotero was right across from me. And I don't remember all the different people, but they were all writers, special effects people in the business. They were all showbiz, movie people. And Bob was next to me. And Bob held court, and he started talking about, okay, here's the plan for the Halloween display this year. I don't remember what the theme was. And he was getting ideas from me. How can we do this? How can we do that? And I was sitting there like, what do I have to contribute to this? I'm not a special effects guy. And every now and then he turned and like, so what do you think about this? And I was like, there's Greg Nicotero across from me brainstorming, and I would try to think of something intelligent to say, but I live in Missouri. I can't really be here to do anything. So I don't know. So I was kind of on the spot, but it was a fun afternoon, and it was just cool being part of his Halloween think tank for a day. I never got to see one of his Halloween displays in person, unfortunately. I wanted to make a special trip just to see that, but that didn't come together. But his Halloween displays were famous. They were legendary, just like his basement. And you might think that my basement of horror is like a tribute to his basement. That really wasn't my thinking, but it is an interesting parallel that I'm coming to you from my basement of horror, and Bob was famous for Bob's basement. So maybe subliminally, subconsciously, in the back of my mind, there was some inspiration there. I don't know. But that's my story about Bob, and it's sad that he's gone. My last contact with him was email. I was asking him about the Topstone Horrible Melting Man, and we were debating whether Keith Ward actually sculpted that. I would contend he did. Bob thought he didn't. So we politely disagreed on that. But that was the last time, because Bob's health was in decline, and especially after his wife passed away, he was less available, less accessible. So I didn't hear much from him the last few years of his life. And even before that, I think his health was sort of in decline even some years before that, so he wasn't going to conventions and other places where I might see him. And I wasn't going out to Los Angeles like I used to. So I kind of lost touch with him, and that's too bad. But I do consider him a friend, and it is sad that he's gone, and sad that there won't be any more trips to Bob's basement or Bob's Halloween display or any of those magical things. But I'm glad I got to experience a little taste of that years ago. Well, so enough of the sad stuff. We're here to talk about fun stuff. So let's talk about Funstuf monsters. That is a Funstuf Dracula. Aniforms. Aniforms is the name of the line. It's the name of the toy line. Aniforms. It's not the company. That is an Aniforms Dracula made by Funstuf. It's like an Ed Wood Dracula. He's lurking through the graveyard in Plan 9. Ed Wood is yelling, "Lurkum! Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun." He's a chiropractor Dracula. So that is a Funstuf Dracula. And he glows in the dark. What is Funstuf? I feel like it's a little jarring to talk about people passing away and surgeries, and then let's talk about fun stuff. But I think it was obviously it was necessary to address my surgery, but also to address people who have passed away since you last saw me. I think that was necessary. So let's talk about fun stuff. This company, Funstuf. Do I have a logo? Yeah, there we go. Here we go. Put the logo here. See that? As the logo. Funstuf Anaforms. You see the illustration of this toy here. Beautiful illustration. This is an ad sheet, and I think this is aimed at retailers, because it came with this, which talks about the advertising for these toys and the schedule for the commercials they're going to run. Funstuf Inc. proposed 1979 television schedules. Arbitron, November 78. And Arbitron, I believe, was a ratings service, kind of like the Nielsen ratings. I think that's what that was. And it might still be around, I don't know. And this is Product Frankenstein, which is why we just saw the flyer there. Schedule date, October 8th through October 28th. And November 12th through December 18 or 16. So even though I had this surgery for close-up stuff, I still need to use a magnifying glass. November 12th through December 16th. So that's a Halloween advertising schedule and a Christmas advertising schedule. And they're talking about television advertising. And we see all of these different markets, these TV markets listed, these different cities. And then the time of day and the kind of programs where the ads are going to run, like Popeye cartoons, Flintstones, Woody Woodpecker, Archie's, Flintstones, Spider-Man, Woody, Hanna-Barbera, Jetsons, Tom and Jerry, Sid and Marty Krofft. There's a Casper, ABC Kid Rotation, Brady Bunch. Let's see, anything interesting here? Bugs Bunny, Brady Bunch, $6 Million Man. And in the time of day, a lot of it's PM, which there's a couple AM, so a lot of this is PM. It could be afternoon, but some of it's in the evening, and that's interesting. I mean, I would guess for like a Christmas schedule, it would be a lot of evening programming, because you're really advertising to the parents who might be watching these things with the kids. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to cover these now, because they are sort of like Christmassy sort of toys. You wouldn't just buy one of these any old time. You would get them for your birthday or Christmas.
This is the Hulk. You can place the Hulk into the rage cage.
It's interesting, even though I have this documentation that Funstuf had all this TV advertising planned for these toys, there's no evidence of these monster commercials on YouTube. You can find commercials for the Funstuf thing and Hulk and even the wrist shooters, but at least I couldn't find commercials for the Dracula and Frankenstein on YouTube. And I would think if they had all this planned and they had this whole schedule of when these commercials were going to air, this big campaign, that those commercials would exist somewhere. So if you know where to find those commercials online, let me know. I'd like to see them, but I couldn't find them. But it seems like they must have had commercials because they had this plan in writing. So if they did, and they had commercials for the Hulk and Thing, where are the monster commercials? How come we can't find them today? I don't remember them from childhood. I remember the Thing and Hulk commercials. I remember the Frankenstein and Dracula toys in stores. I don't remember seeing commercials. Did you? Did you see those commercials as a kid? Do you know where they are now? Are they on YouTube or maybe Internet Archive, or where are they? If you know where they are, let me know. Send me a link. I want to see them.
A job for your Spider-Man web shooter. Flip your secret wristband. Take aim. And down slides your man to safety.
I'm always a little rusty when I take a few weeks off. I have to get back in the swing of things. So I think Funstuf officially was called FS Toys, Inc. That's what I've seen in some documentation, FS Toys, Inc. And I've seen different locations for them. I've seen Orlando. I've seen Winter Park, Florida. And apparently their plant, these things are manufactured in the United States. Their plant was in Maitland, Florida. And I didn't look on a map. Maybe Orlando, Winter Park, Maitland, maybe it's all pretty much the same place. I don't know. Or could be spread out. I'm not sure. But it's all Florida. So they are a Florida-based company. I don't know when they started, and I don't know when they ended. I do know there was a company in the 1990s that made die-cast cars, little metal cars, and there seems to be some confusion about whether that's the same company. I don't think it is. I think it's a different company, but it could be the same. If anyone knows, let me know, because I don't really have any good information about the history of Funstuf. And I'm not sure that this 90s company that made metal cars is the same Funstuf that made this stuff. I don't think it was, but it could be. It could be. It had a different logo. Some other interesting toys that Funstuf made are Bucket of Worms in 1975, My Pet Ghost in 1976. And I've got a My Pet Ghost here. I'm not going to take it out of the wrap for this show. It's all wrapped up and it's dusty and everything. But eventually I might do an episode on My Pet Ghost. I'll probably buy another one to open up and show you how it works. But that's My Pet Ghost. And that's another Funstuf toy from the 70s. They made unusual toys. They didn't just make like a standard action figure. They made shape-shifting, weird, spring-loaded, action feature type toys that did something. That was their specialty. And all the stuff that I know about came from the mid to late 70s. But I know these monsters were in production longer than that. And I should also say that this Aniforms line, in addition to a Frankenstein and a Dracula, they made the Incredible Hulk and Ben Grimm, the Thing. The Thing broke out of a rock cage, and the Hulk tore out of a rage cage. He was the Rage Cage Hulk. And Toy Biz reused that concept in the 90s. They had a Rage Cage Hulk, smaller, made of plastic. The Funstuf one, like all these things, had a rubbery top, a rubbery torso, head, and arms. And it expanded and broke out of its cage. It also had a shirt that ripped apart. It was like put together with Velcro, and as the Hulk expanded, the shirt ripped apart. There's a catalog on the Plaid Stallions website that shows an Aniforms Popeye. I've never seen that Popeye. I don't remember it from childhood. I remember the other ones, the Hulk, the Thing, Dracula, Frankenstein. I don't remember Popeye, and I don't remember ever seeing a Funstuf expanding Popeye on the collector market. I did a Google search. I didn't see anything except Brian. He's Plaid Stallions. Brian's catalog, and I didn't see anything on eBay, any sold auctions, current auctions. So let me know, did they actually make that Popeye? I don't think they did, but I could be wrong, but I've never seen it. So if you know, let me know, did they actually produce the Popeye? Maybe it was only UK or Canada, I don't know, but somewhere in the world, do they actually produce this expanding Popeye? I'd like to know. I know they produced Dracula and Frankenstein. Here's Dracula right here. Ah, stand up, Dracula. Now where's his coffin? I have portions of the coffin. I've had a few of these over time. I've had a couple of loose Frankensteins and a couple of loose Draculas and a couple of boxed Frankensteins. I've only had one boxed Dracula that you're going to see. But I've had a few of these over the years. And this is incomplete, so it's not going to stand up correctly. As I said, it's incomplete, so it doesn't really work quite right. Or it doesn't really work at all, frankly, but let's see how he looks in here. He's already falling apart. I'll have to just hold it. Okay, so that's what he looks like. That's how he looks in his coffin. And the idea is he's going to be in the coffin like that. And somehow I think this bomb stays up. He's got a lid that fits over him. So just imagine, this is sort of jerry-rigged with both of these. So all the Anaforms toys, you have a pump. And you pump it up. And then he expands, and his arm pushes this open, and he has weights in his feet, and he comes out. And I think this tips over, it falls to pieces. And I think he's supposed to, well, this has got Velcro on him. I don't know if it's supposed to have that or not. He's got Velcro on the bottom of his feet. But I think he's supposed to sort of like come out like that. I don't think he's supposed to stay in there. But that's what he looks like with his coffin. And he does glow in the dark. And we will open one of these. Let's see, can you see his... Yeah, so that's where the pump goes in. Okay, let's put him back over here. We'll put this away. Oh boy, now we're going to look at the boxes. This is the box for Dracula. They're huge. You see what I mean when I said these are like Christmas birthday gifts? Not really something you buy just any old time. Can I even get a good shot of this? Yeah, it's hard. It's a big box. It's kind of like the Kenner Alien, about the same size. I don't have an ad sheet for this one. He looks more like Nosferatu on the back. That's what he looks like inside of his box. Now, these have been opened, and I've had both of these out of these boxes. So I'm going to, I think I have, haven't I? Well, I'll be darned. No. Well, that takes care of that. Maybe it was the other one I had, because I've had more than one of these. No, he's sealed. Well, it's a good thing I've got that loose one then, or else it'd be kind of disappointing. Well, I've got a loose one to show you. That's good. Let's take another look at him. There. You see his coffin in there? It's surprising. He's sealed. I mean, okay. See, I'm not going to undo that. I'm just wondering, like, did I reseal the tape? Because I've had these for 30 plus years. I don't know. It looks like original tape. Okay, so we're not going to open them up. This little sticker on here says, based on the character in the original novel by Bram Stoker. And it's pasted over some writing that was already there. Let's have another look at that. See that sticker? So originally he said, he might have been a universal copyright, but they want to make sure that they didn't get sued, so they put that sticker on there saying he's based on the Bram Stoker character, not the movie character. It's kind of sticky right there. Huh. You know, when you're dealing with toys this old, you just never know what's going on. But like the place where the box is fastened together is kind of sticky, like maybe the glue's gonna come loose. You just never know. There he is. Okay, so since we can't see him operate, which is what I was planning, let's set him over here. Ah! Okay. Gotta drink when I say okay. Okay. Double okay. Alright. Now let's look at Frankenstein. Now he is open, so we can look at him. All right, there's Frankie. And I've had more than one of both of these. I've had more than one of these boxed ones. I've had more than one loose one. Right now, all I've got are what you see. This boxed one, boxed Dracula, loose Dracula, that's it. There was a time when I had 2 loose Frankensteins, 2 boxed Frankensteins, a different loose Dracula, and I thought just this one box Dracula, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe I had another box one, because I know I opened one up and I put it together. So if it wasn't this one, maybe I had another one. I don't know. But that one's sealed, so we're not going to open that. But we will open this. Here is the beautiful Frankenstein. You can see him in there. You know, there you go. Sort of. Yeah, that's gonna. He's gonna come out of there. And this box is amazing. Look at that box. Isn't that something? Look at that hand reaching forward, and the way it works with the toy inside. And then here's the side panel. Look at that. That is a sight to behold. Look at that beautiful artwork. Now that's what I call toy artwork. That is a old-fashioned toy package illustration that you just don't see anymore. You don't see painted artwork like that. And the back, really nice. These boxes do remind me of the Kenner Alien box, the size, the dimensions, the window. And they came out around the same time. Kenner Alien was 79, and the first year for these was 78. But they were in production, I think, through 81, maybe. I know they're in a 1980 Funstuf catalog. So they were offered that year. That means they were in production for a while. That's lovely artwork. Let's see if he has a universal copyright. I believe he does. Yeah, 1978. Universal City Studios, all rights reserved. Frankenstein is a trademark of and licensed by Universal City, and it ends with a TY, Universal City, and this sticker is covering up something that ends in TY. So I'm sure this was the same little blurb that said Dracula is a trademark of and licensed by Universal City. And they covered it up because they didn't want any problems with Bela Jr., who was going on the warpath. And this would be around the time when, I guess it was right before Remco put out their large action figures, and they had to put Count Yorga on the Dracula. But then, I guess it must have been a year later, or a year or two later, when they put out the minifigures, they were able to put Bela Lugosi on the card for the minifigures. So things changed in the meantime. But this would have been before that, when Dracula would have still been an issue. I told you I would take him out, so let's do that. Now this window is taped on. Ooh. Yikes. And the tape, of course, is coming loose. Now, it wasn't taped on at the factory. It's been taped on after the fact. He's got an insert that kind of gives structure to the front of the box. It'll stay in there. This tape, of course, has lost all of its stickiness. I don't know if I might have to put some glue or something on that window. I don't know. It's turned yellow. I mean, it's already has tape on it anyway, so it's already been altered slightly. This is the Frankie in his insert. He's got two sections here, so this comes apart, and all of his lab table stuff is in here. Doesn't look like it would be, but that's his lab table in there. And coiled up inside of here is his pump, which is also sort of supporting him. He's kind of standing on it, so I don't want to crush the cardboard by having him stand on that cardboard. This is the pump. So that is just like the one that went into Dracula, into his back. And you're supposed to pump this up, like the substance, pump it up, and he expands. Man, I don't think I want to take him off of this, but you can see him at least. There he is. There's the Frankenstein. He's got big old boots. And I was shopping around when I thought I would do this episode this season. I was shopping around for a loose one, so I could show you the Frankie loose and not have to be so careful about how I handled him. But I just couldn't find one at a price that I wanted to pay. They were all like $100, $150 for a loose one. I don't think that's worth it. That's what he looks like. And his mouth, when he's new and pliable, when you squeeze his head, the air comes out of his mouth. There's little slits inside his mouth. So you pump him up, his upper torso would expand, and that would make him break free of his lab table. And also he glows in the dark like the Dracula. And then to release the air inside, you'd squeeze his head and it would come out of his mouth. Let's see what we got in here. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's a lot of complicated stuff. Here's his instructions. Even the instructions look cool. And though I don't think I did it with this one, I think it was the other one I had, I did assemble one of these completely and test it out to see how it worked. And it did work. This would have been in the 1990s when it was probably a lot softer. Because this expanding material hardens like any other sort of rubbery stuff, it gets hard. And these are very stiff now. When I first got these and when I had the other ones, it was still soft. Important note, removal of inflator bulb or tube will cause deflation of your action figure. Very important note, they had to staple it on there. That's what the instructions look like. Very exciting. The exciting part would be in the back where it really shows you what this thing looks like when he's strapped in. And then when you're letting the air out. And here's his package. Now I can tell this tape was applied by me. I can tell that. So I don't know if it was originally had some other kind of tape or what. That's his packet of stuff. More instructions. Oh my goodness, this is a lot of stuff. Can I open this? Carefully? Since it's not the original tape anyway. At the very least, maybe we can take his table out, his platform, and these instructions. Ooh! Ow, thanks. Snagged on something. I can see why why there's holes in this bag because of these metal things sticking out. Is this in one piece still? Dust. I don't know where that dust is from. Oh, I do, because there's sandpaper. This says sandpaper parts. You can see all the dust. That's from the sandpaper. Not a lot to look at, just a piece of plastic. But I keep looking like that because I want to see if my memory is full on the camera over there. I don't want to get dust on them, but we can see that the table, it doesn't look very big, but it's actually bigger than he is, and he would rest on that table. And what else can we look at in here? That's what the table would look like. What's inside of here? Ooh. Why is this in here like this? We have a little rod. Look at that tiny little piece. And we have this little thing. Look at that. I bet this goes on here. Yeah, but I don't want to mess with that. No, it does not go on there. Oh, it does, but later in the process. Man, I don't want to get all this out. Yikes. This is a mess. Bag's coming apart. I'm going to tear this bag trying to get this out. One of the sides of the table, the lab table. The legs. This goes on each side of the table. As I recall, this was really complicated to put together. Now, obviously, when it was new, it wouldn't look like this. Well, I don't know. Then again, maybe it did. Maybe it did come out. I don't think it's in the package. Does it say anything about applying this sandpaper? I don't think so. I think the sandpaper is pre-applied. Because I remember the one I put together, the sandpaper is already stuck to it. So this was stuck at the factory. So that sandpaper is there because when you crank this thing, it has a little crank. It's in here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Can I get to it? Here's a little crank. When you crank that, the table, you see how it's got like gears, the table will go up and down, and as you do, there's a little bit that scrapes against this. There are two of these, one on each side, and it scrapes this thing. So, is it on this? Yeah. Do you see how, it's hard to see, but there's little bits on there. So that would scrape against the sandpaper, and it would throw off sparks. And it did work. I tried it, you know, in the 90s. You crank it and it threw off sparks. And then when you pumped this thing, Frankie, who would be strapped to the table with Velcro, here's Velcro right here. Look at that fascinating Velcro. His arms, when he was new and you could bend his arms, now they're hard, his arms would pop out from the straps and his weight would tilt this table. Here's where his feet would be, like that, and he would come off the table because of the weights in his feet and stand up straight. So this was it was pretty involved. It was a lot of assembly, as you can see. It's a lot of little parts, a lot of assembly, and a lot of effort just for that effect. The sparks are nice, and there's glow-in-the-dark parts. I think even the crank and stuff, I think that probably glows in the dark. Looks like it does. The Frankenstein itself definitely glows in the dark. You got the sparks, got the glow-in-the-dark, you got the table comes up, and he comes off his table, and he's brought to life. So it's cool, but how many times would you set that all up and do that? I mean, you might, but it's kind of like the Monsterizer, except the Remco Monsterizer at least was made to work with those other action figures. And I don't think it required a lot of assembly. This is very complicated. It's almost like a model kit. There's so many parts to it. The Dracula, I think, is a little simpler, but it still has a framework that you have to set up, and the bottom is detached. You have to snap that in place, and that opens and closes, and it's got the lid. It's got, it's got parts. It's got complications. So, but I think the assembly is definitely simpler on the Dracula. Frankenstein's very complicated. Now the Hulk, the Rage Cage, that probably wasn't very complicated. That just had a platform and the four sides of the cage and the top, and you stuck the Hulk in there, and you pumped him up, and he got bigger, and you popped the cage apart. Same thing with Ben Grimm. He had a rock trap that was the same idea, except instead of bars, it was these rock walls, and he'd pop out of that. And I don't know what the Popeye did. I don't even know if they really made that Popeye, frankly. Well, I don't know what else to say. As you can see, trying to assemble this would be a nightmare. But I think you've got a good idea what these look like. Let's just take one more look at Frankie here. There he is on his insert. That's where the pump goes. And you can see it's nice and minty. All the paint and everything's very shiny and nice. Never been played with. And when he was new, he was very flexible. And kind of squishy. At least the top half. Not so much now. Like this Dracula is hard as a rock. If I try to squeeze that head, it's going to crack. Maybe someone else can squeeze their Dracula head and it'll be just fine, but I'm not going to try it. He still has a little give on his arm. Blah. See if I can without cracking his arm off. That's what his face looks like. He's pretty cool, isn't he? He looks pretty neat. Blah. They're cool toys. That's it. I really would have liked to have put it all together, but I mean, I'm looking at this thinking, no way. This is how many different instruction sheets have we gone through now? At least 2 instruction booklets, little bits and pieces like that. I think you'll have to be satisfied with this view. You know, if in the future I get a loose one that's got all the parts, or I get like a beater box that's complete, maybe I'll revisit this and put them together for you. Because my idea originally was to put them together, but now that I'm looking at this, forget it. That's not happening. This is nuts. This is crazy. I did it once in the 90s. Not this one, I don't think. And it did work. It was cool, but it was a lot of parts, it was not easy, and then trying to get it all back together again, I don't know. That's it for today. I hope you got something out of this. It was a little awkward. You know, I've been out of practice for a few weeks, so hey, I had surgery. I'm recovering from surgery. Give me a break. Next one will be better. That's it. I hope you had a happy holiday, and I hope you have a great 2026, and I hope better days are ahead. It's hard to believe they are, but let's just be hopeful. Until next time, the one with the most toys is dead.